You've probably thought about becoming a professional photographer at least at some point. Take it from me, after years of my Sigma lens grind set and working my butt off, it's almost enough to pay the rent. No, I'm kidding. Going pro is hard work, but it's way more doable than most people think, and you can definitely build a career with photography. It might not be exactly the career you had in mind. We'll get to that. So in this video, let's look at the 6 key ideas that you need to keep in mind if you're thinking about going pro, and at the end, we'll do a little rapid fire myth busting. Starting off with the least serious one, have successful parents. Okay, this one is mostly a joke, but there is a reason it's in here. Photography, as well as most creative jobs, are really in demand right now because they come with a lot of social status attached. Speaking of social status, why not subscribe to the channel? We've all met that one guy who's a creative director, but he seems to always be networking instead of actually working, and his father has a Wikipedia page. Yeah, so like basically what we do is like we're at the intersection of art and technology. Well, no, it's my father's company, actually. Some people think that it's a little bit unfair that most of the creative jobs go to these kinds of people, but that's out of our control and it's not a requirement. If you use your background as an excuse to not be successful, you've already failed at the first hurdle. Think about it. Being creative means that you need a distinct perspective, fresh ideas, a really unique pool of art that you've consumed for inspiration. So, when a lot of the creative professionals are from a really similar background, that makes it easier for you to stand out. This is part of why I usually say you don't need to go to photography school or get a BFA to go pro. You can learn everything that you need to learn about photography and art and really life in general on the internet for free and just by doing stuff. I didn't even finish high school. In fact, I failed high school photography. I wasn't joking. Look, course name, art photography. These are the things that I had to achieve. I passed one of them. The rest of them, one of them I didn't even show up for, and I think this was the most important one. Plus, because it's so competitive and quite challenging, becoming a professional it's something you have to really want. And if, like me, you have checked the price tag on potatoes before, it's a little bit easier to really, really want it. That's why number 2 is give it time. I remember when I first decided that I wanted to be a professional photographer, I was hell-bent on making it happen within a few months. And I had only been a photographer for a couple of years at that point. Here's a fun truth and a painful truth for you. You can get better than the average person at most skills with a couple of months of dedicated learning and practice. Like, imagine you picked up an instrument and practiced it for an hour every day for 2 months. Chances are, if you picked a person off the street at random, you'd be way better at them. The same goes for tennis or poetry or chess. Never had one lesson. But the painful part, if you want to actually be really good at something, it takes like the best part of a decade. Sometimes more. If you're in your early 20s and you're wondering why you're not shooting covers for Vanity Fair magazine, that's why. You can't be an expert at anything in your early 20s. It's not possible. You just haven't had enough time. That is a myth so big that I had to cover it here instead of at the end. If I didn't really quickly change my mindset when I was just starting out, I never would have stuck to this for so long. Try to keep reminding yourself that the chances are, if you want to make your photography into a career, it's going to take 10 years, give or take. And I know, I hear you, that can sound a little bit depressing, maybe, but it's actually not. Think about how many people are going to give up at year 3 or 4 or 5. If you actually work at it every day for 10 years, the chances of you being successful are pretty good, actually. And even if it doesn't work out, you can get a fake laptop job doing something in Excel and sleep well at night knowing that you tried your best. You can go back on my channel and see my earliest videos where I literally had like 20 subscribers, and they were 3 years ago and they were rubbish. And that was after spending the previous 4 years shooting photos every day. And for most of the last 8 or 9 years, I've been doing number 3, which is work for free. A lot of people recoil in horror when I say this. I get it, but hear me out. Working for free doesn't mean shooting a corporate event all day and then delivering 50 perfect photos for exposure that they then put on Instagram with a filter over it and don't tag you. Working for free means kind of 2 things. The more fun one is doing your own personal projects. If you're constantly learning and pushing yourself creatively, your photos will keep getting better. Every photography situation is basically just a big set of problems to solve, and the more times you figure those problems out, the more relaxed and fun to be around you'll be when the pressure of being on a real paid shoot is hanging over your head. So you should always be planning shoots to improve and expand your portfolio. If you do portraits, you should be doing like a new set of portraits every weekend if you can. But that doesn't mean doing the same white background headshot of Mark from Logistics. That means mastering the white background shot and then pushing yourself. What if you drove out into the desert and did photos there? What if you did portraits of a sheep? What if you hired a professional model? How much better would that make your portraits? Spoiler alert, a lot. And the second thing working for free means is that you are probably, I'm sorry, not as good as you think you are. I'm not very #positive vibes of me, but it's true. It was definitely true for me when I started charging people money for photos, and looking back, I'd have made everyone, including future me, actually, much happier if I'd just offered to do those photos in exchange for lunch. My approach to this now is that if I know with 100% certainty that I can deliver on a job and blow the client away, then I'll charge them for it, and when I do, it's a big old number. But if I know that what I'm shooting is even slightly outside of what I know I'm really, really good at, I'll do it for free. Even now, it gives me an opportunity to learn and push myself, maybe get something for my portfolio, and if I completely mess it up and embarrass myself, I don't have to feel too bad about it. If you charge somebody 5 figures for a photo shoot and then completely mess it up, you have to move countries. Now, before number 4, I'm doing this video for free since there's no sponsor, so you might like to check out my zines, my presets, and my merch at shop.huntercreatesthings.com. There's a link in the description. Also, I've been reading this lately, The Art of Street Photography, a fantastic book by my friends Joshua Jackson and Sean Tucker. Highly recommend that you pick this up and have a flick through. It's pretty cool that they got this published. It's hard to get books published these days, especially if they aren't about vampire billionaire men, but this is very good, highly recommended. Thank you to them for sending it to me. I've been enjoying it thoroughly. Number 4, make noise. Not like that, like socially. Put it this way, if nobody knows that you take photos, how are they gonna hire you? You need to be sharing your work online as much as possible. Post your best work to Instagram and your website. I'm very sorry to tell you this, but actually Facebook and LinkedIn are pretty useful for getting the right sort of attention. In fact, probably more useful than Instagram. But don't overdo it. Don't post photos that you aren't proud of just for the sake of posting to a consistent schedule. Make sure that you're creating an online presence that matches what your dream client would want to see. We'll get back to this one in the myth-busting section later, actually. And get creative about sharing your own work too. You're not just a photographer, you're an artist, right? And so you can experiment with different formats and ways of sharing. Posting just the photos on their own, or worse, with an obnoxious watermark or camera settings, isn't going to do very much for you. Maybe you could try doing some funky carousel posts with tips about how to photograph cars or real estate or whatever it is that you shoot. This is great because not only is it helpful to other photographers who might follow you and help boost your reach, but it's also really clearly showing that you know what you're doing and why. If you can explain why you shot that car a certain way or what you do differently, it'll really help your photo of a Porsche in the sunset stand out against the 4 billion other photographs of Porsches in the sunset. And importantly, you need to make the right kind of noise. If you shoot some cars and some food and some fashion and some live music, that's fine, I do too, but maybe it's best to focus your online sharing and your portfolio down to just one of those things. If I wanted an expert live music photographer, but it's only 20% of what you do and share, you probably aren't an expert, right? If I'm looking for that, I want the concert photography guy who's known for concert photography in my area. It's your job to become the insert thing photography guy. And when I say niche down, that doesn't always mean getting much more specific about what photos you take. It can also mean more specific customers. Maybe you don't just shoot cars or you don't just shoot Porsches, but maybe you shoot luxury cars specifically for auction sites. Think about it. If you're taking photos for an auction site, you're probably going to shoot the car really differently than if you're shooting for a pro drifter that's trying to get sponsors for his tires. Does that make sense? Also, notice that neither of those options are photos of your car just because you really, really like it. Maybe 5 and 6 will explain that further. Learn business shit. Everybody want to be a photographer? Ain't nobody want to make and send invoices. Maybe this is upsetting to hear, but most of the time, as a professional photographer, you're not actually taking photos. I mean, probably the biggest thing you spend time doing is editing, but after that, you're doing business stuff. It doesn't matter how good of an artist you are, if you run the business poorly, you're going to have a really bad time. It's not just invoices and accounting either. Sales and marketing are a huge part of any business, and this is no different. Learning how to deal with objections, learning how to negotiate.
Michael, you haven't even heard. Never accept their first offer. What is your second offer?
And how to price yourself is a big challenge that's much easier if you read like 1 or 2 books on how to do that. Learn how to communicate with businessy types. It's quite different from talking to other artists. They aren't interested in your opinion on recycling or the new Boards of Canada album. They're interested in the Board of Trustees meeting and whether or not they're getting a new Patek this year. Legal, operations, managing your finances, hiring people. This is all of the stuff that you need to know that you can learn for free with time, experience, and like a library card. There are loads of gurus online who will sell you a quite expensive course on how to easily make 10 bands a month doing real estate videos, bro. But in reality, you won't learn anything from their course that you can't just learn on your own by watching some free videos on YouTube and making 100 bad videos first. Plus, who cares if you can make a great real estate video? That's the easy part. Building and maintaining relationships with all of the real estate agents in a high value area near you, and also building up a portfolio of successful work. That's the hard part. The almost impossible part is outcompeting Gary, who's 55 and has been doing all of their photos and videos on his Canon 1DX since 2012, and will do a job that's probably 80% as good as yours for about half the price. That's where we get to number 6, which aside from the myth busting, which we'll get to later, is the most important thing in the video. Find where you can add value. This is the most important thing to understand. Money is a representation of value. If you aren't giving people value, they won't give you their money. And people giving you their money is kind of quite an important part of being a professional. I think a lot of the time people like us misunderstand this because we're both, we're cursed with this creativity thing, right? And to us, art has inherent value just on its own. I hate to break it to you, not everyone thinks that way. And you know who definitely doesn't think that way? Businesses. So if you just want to take pretty pictures and have people pay you for prints of them, unless you're a 1 in a million talent or you make a deal with the devil, it's not gonna happen, at least not enough to live off. You know how in the Renaissance period, all of the like kings and lords and whatever the ye olde equivalent of Mark Zuckerberg was would have pet artists that they paid to do paintings and stuff? Yeah, that wasn't because the kings really liked paintings. It was about creating prestige and an image. It was essentially propaganda. It's like the equivalent of paying 15-year-olds to clip your live stream for TikTok. Those pet artists are now the modern day Instagram boyfriend. It's the same thing. The value of those paintings and the value of great lifestyle photography is social status, which people are usually willing to pay for. So you have to look at what you're good at and what people need, and then find something in the Venn diagram middle bit. Oh look, someone's thought of that before. Funny that, ikigai, the Japanese concept of not being a complete loser. But Hunter, you're saying, what specifically does work? What are people willing to pay for? That's a photo. I'm glad you asked. Here are the areas that I would look at really seriously if I was just starting today. Weddings. This is a big one. Obviously, people are willing to pay to be sure that they're going to have great photos of the most expensive party they will ever throw. Even better, a lot of the time, family is helping them pay. I've shot weddings and it's really hard work, but there is actually quite a lot of room for innovation and improvement, especially if you're young. Gen Z couples are not so into the cheesy pastel sunset thing. Maybe your niche could be that you're the best gothic wedding photographer in your area. you can have that one for free. In a similar direction, events in general, especially corporate stuff where someone needs good photos of their expensive function to show the leadership team that they're doing their job well, there's not really a good alternative yet to hiring a real-life photographer for real-life events, unless you're friends with a courtroom sketch artist or something. Also, portraiture. People need pictures of themselves. Getting really good at headshots can be a really good gig, especially if you find a certain style and keep reliably finding more and more people who need a picture in that style. Maybe you can do pensive author photos for the backs of books, or you could specialize in taking photos for people's dating profiles. Here's a few bonus ideas as well. Being a licensed drone operator. If you live somewhere where that's regulated and normal people can't just fly drones, that is a really great way to offer value. Sure, the company's owner's daughter's cousin might have a camera, but she can't do aerial shots. Agricultural, industrial, and construction photography is really underexplored, and I think it's really cool. If you think about it, construction companies also need a portfolio of all of the buildings that they build to show their potential clients, and they need good pictures of them. But here's what I wouldn't do. Things like product photos and food are pretty tough. If it's a small company, they probably haven't got a very big budget. Most restaurants barely make any profit at all, so that's a tough one. But bigger companies usually have in-house content teams. So if you really want to take photos of laptops or guitars, you could keep an eye out for jobs like that, with the drawback that you'll have a manager who doesn't know what a TikTok is or does. Fashion, music, sports, and basically anything that's really cool, good luck. The truth is, there's a giant queue of pretty talented young photographers who are willing to shoot that concert for free for the experience. And so unless you're really, really, really good, it's quite hard to make a consistent career out of that stuff. Stock photos, don't even bother. Maybe for some photographers that can work, but if you're watching me, you're probably a bit more artsy-fartsy and less, here's the word synergy spelt out with dominoes. Look, the point is this: photography is a bit like cooking. It's a little bit of art, a little bit of science, and almost everyone does it to some level. The people who do it professionally are overwhelmingly paid minimum wage drug addicts and are quite grumpy about both of those things, but because there are a small handful of celebrities who do it, it seems glamorous. That being said, let's bust some myths rapid fire style. You don't need a new camera to go pro. I went pro with my D750. Lots of pros are still using a 5D Mark IV. Those cameras were good enough to shoot billboards and Vogue covers in 2010, and are still good enough now. You don't need to run Google ads or paid Instagram posts to get customers. In fact, unless you really know what you're doing, you will almost definitely lose money running paid advertising on the internet. I used to be a professional Google Ads optimizer guy, and even then, half of the time they would lose money. AI is not going to replace photographers. Ignore the noise. Don't let people trigger you. There's a lot of people with vested interests in hyping up AI, but the reality is that AI can't take a photo of your big kiss at the wedding or tell you how to pose, or come up with ideas that you didn't ask it for. Going viral on Instagram or getting published in a magazine will not blow up your career overnight. Trust me, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, not how it works at all. You don't get discovered. You never get discovered. You always have to be building relationships, sharing your photos, and putting in the work to make the sale. Having the best camera for the job is useful, yes, but people won't work with you again because your camera has more megapixels. They'll work with you again because you're great to be around, relaxed, fun, and a good collaborator and communicator. And here's the biggest myth bust of them all. Being a professional photographer doesn't make you better than someone who just does it for the love of the game. In fact, I haven't done any pro work at all this whole year. I find it more fulfilling to do the same thing, but for free, because that way I have no pressure, I get to pick which photos people see, and I get to experiment without any consequences. If you really love candid street photography, that's cool. Just do it. It's totally fine to be a street photographer on the weekend and a level 2 systems administrator or a bartender during the week. It doesn't make your photography any less important or worthwhile. A lot of us have this anxiety about being seen as a real photographer, but that's not a thing. So just let your work speak for itself. And if you're feeling all inspired after that, but you're worried that you live somewhere too boring, don't worry, because I'll fix that for you. Watch this video next, and I'll teach you how to take banger photos in boring places. Stay hydrated and create art.